What's going on, everybody? This is Emerald Knight Leon back with another deck analysis. This one is a bit of a fun experiment I was wanting to create. I always liked Gaogamon, and I wanted to see if I could actually kind of bring potential to this guy, because as of right now, MirageGaogamon is not doing too hot. It's not going to do or even reach its full potential for another set or two. When we get more support for him. But because of that, I kind of wanted to see if I could build a deck that essentially could capitalize on MirageGaoga. And unfortunately, there aren't as many. There's more option cards that do what MirageGaogamon's supposed to do than there are Digimon. So, for like cards that I could possibly tech in, there's not a lot, honestly. Not a lot at all. But going into this, though, the whole premises of this deck is how often can I bounce a Tamer or Digimon back to my opponent's hand? That is the whole premise of this. And surprisingly enough, I can do it decently often. Going into our Digi-Eggs, we're running 4 copies of Wanyamon. Wanyamon is just a really good blue Digi-Egg right now. It's going to potentially stay really good for another few sets. When attacking, if you have a blue Tamer in play, draw 1. We are running 9 Tamers here. Tamers are the thing now. And we're going to be able to get that draw power off, which is always nice. For our level 3s, we are running 4 copies of Jellymon from BT9. This, if when we play a blue Tamer, we get to draw 1, just giving us more draw power, but also it's inherited of when an effect adds a card to your hand, such as Wanyamon's effect, return one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon to its owner's hand. So already we're going to be able to bounce stuff like memory blockers or Digimon that can prevent us from lowering any costs. But also now we are also running our owns in the form of 2 Madoki Betas and 2 Syakomons. And the reason we're just running 2 of each is because we want to be able to see our Jellies and our Gaomons from BT11. Gaomon's on-play effect lets us reveal top 3 cards of our deck, add 1 Digimon with Gaogamon in its name, and 1 blue Tamer among them to our hand, and then trash the rest. It's a decently good card, but its inherited is also nice. If you have a blue Tamer in play when attacking once per turn, return one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon to their hand. So we have 2 ways of just bouncing level 3s now. For level 4 Digimons, though, we're only running 8. And that's because we are running a lot of Tamers. We are running a decent amount of option cards. So for our level 4s, I really was looking for Digimon that can just keep facilitating bouncing stuff, because that's what we need to do. And unfortunately with level 4s, there's only 2 that really do this as an inherited. And that is Starter Deck 8 Vidramon, where if we have 8 or more cards in our hand, which will be pretty easy to achieve, return one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon to their hand, and then trash all the Digivolution cards of that Digimon. And then now our new BT11 Gaogamon. Its main effect is when attacking once per turn. If your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, gain 1 memory, which is good if you want to Digivolve again, or if you're able to give this jamming, for example. And then its inherited is if you have a Tamer in play, return one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon to its owner's hand. This deck, in my opinion, feels like the ultimate antithesis to any Rookie Rush deck of the past, including D-Brigade as of now. Because just the amount of times we can bounce level 3s or even level 4s and 5s back to hand it's kind of impressive. For our level 5s, we are running 7 level 5s here. We are running 3 copies of the old MirageGaogamon. Now, the only reason we're running this is that inherited. While you have a Tamer in play, it gets plus 2,000 DP. This makes our MirageGaogas at 14. Its Digiburst is fine. It does let us return a level 4 or lower to the hand, but we're not really using it for that. We are, however, definitely wanting to use 4 copies of BT11's MirageGaogamon. When digivolving until the end of your opponent's turn, it gains blocker and plus 2000 DP for every 4 cards in your opponent's hand. And then it's inherited of when an effect adds cards to your opponent's hand, unsuspend this Digimon. So what's going to happen is when we get into our MirageGaogamon, it'll be able to unsuspend when we're able to bounce stuff back to our opponent's hand via either Jellymon, Gaomon, or Vidramon's effects. Or from, say, if we swung with MirageGaogamon, Digivolved into something else, it unsuspends because of that attack. Speaking of MirageGaogamon, let's talk about him. The new MirageGaogamon, it's okay. It's when Digivolving returns one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon to their hand. If no Digimon was returned by this effect, your opponent has to add the top card of their security stack to their hand, which is nice. Once per turn, all turns, when an effect adds cards to your opponent's hand, gain 1 memory for every 4 cards in your opponent's hand. This is really nice because of the fact that it makes it hard for your opponent to have to use effects that can add cards to their hand, because they're going to run the risk of you gaining a lot of memory off of this and then passing over to turn. They're going to need cards like Madoki Betamon. We are running 3 copies of the old BT4 MirageGaogamon. Now, it is a 4 cost for Evo. It's not the greatest, but it's when Digivolving is nice too. Since we are bouncing a lot of things back to their hand, we're going to be able to gain at least maybe 2 memory off of his. When Digivolving, gain 1 memory for every 4 cards in your opponent's hand, essentially bringing him down to a 3 or even a 2 cost for Evo. He also has a nice benefit of he cannot be blocked. He is unblockable. So we're always going to be able to swing and he won't be able to be blocked. However, this does, to my knowledge, does not include effects that redirect. Such as, say, Black War Gray. Now, I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Black War Gray's effect would still allow it to redirect MirageGaogamon's attack back to it. Moving on, though, we are running 7 options, though. We have 3 copies of Ice Statue, mainly because it becomes a 5 cost when we have a blue tamer. Trash the top 3 Digivolution cards of one of your opponent's Digimon, and then return one of your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards back to its owner's hand. Ice Statue is here for the Black War Gray matchup. Basically just stripping it bare. That is why we are using it. It's the same reason we are running 3 copies of Startling Thunder, as well as the Jellymon. Return one of our opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon to their hand, and then if we have a Digimon with Jellymon in its name or in its Digivolution cards, we can return one of our opponent's Tamers to their hand. With how a lot of decks are using a lot of Tamers now, this is a good card to have nowadays, and it makes Jellymon worth using. Obviously, we are running just a mandatory 1 Ice Wall. It can come in clutch when needed. But for our Tamers, though, we are running 4 copies of Nikolai Petrov. It's a 3-cost Tamer. The start of our main phase, one of our Gaomons or Gaogamons can gain jamming. So with MirageGaogamon on top of the MirageGaogamon, it's going to unsuspend and have jamming for at least 2 swings, which is always very nice. And then we can just gain more memory, set up for another MirageGaogamon to put in more work. He has the extra effect of when an effect adds cards to your opponent's hand, we can suspend him to gain 1 memory. We are also running 3 copies of Thomas. Thomas here is basically here to keep attacking. His on play of triggering draw 1 is nice. It gets us more cards in our hand. But his main effect is if our opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, which is doable, you may suspend this tamer to unsuspend one of your Digimon with Gao in its name. So we're going to be able to unsuspend MirageGaogamon a few times because of this. Like Nikolai, he is also a 3 cost, which is very nice. As a memory fixer, we are running one. We are running 2 copies of Kyoshiro, mainly because since we are attacking with Digimon that are level 5 or higher, and because we have Jellymon, if we have 7 or fewer cards in our hand, we can suspend him to just get that extra draw, just to search our deck for more. If you wanted to, you could run Davis for searching potential, but having a consistent draw power, especially for this deck, I feel is more useful. Now, for the cards that you could tech in, because this deck is, in my opinion, the most very streamlined that I could make it, there aren't a lot that I would take out. We definitely want to keep Startling Thunder because it is useful in a lot of matchups. Ice Statue you could take out. And for your level 4s, it really depends on what you're trying to do. If you want a hybrid just to go for game, Lobomon and Kumamon are always useful. If you want something that is a low cost for Evo, maybe Koelamon. It's also a blocker. If you want something that could come out as security for more draw power, Cordramon is your obvious choice. For level 5's Dragomon, maybe. It lets you return an opponent's level 4 or lower with no Digivolution cards to their hand. So that's an option, honestly. I would probably replace the BT4 MirageGaoga for that. Or we could use Frozomon, who also has an inherited that lets us win a Digivolution card on an opponent's Digimon's trash. We can return a level 3 Digimon back to their hand. That can be good in conjunction with the Ice Statue. For option cards, cards that bounce things back to hand, obviously. Plasma Decadraw Launcher, which lets us return level 6 or higher. Forbidden Trident, which will just give when attacking, return one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon to their hand, and an extra 2,000 on top of that. Rattlestar, in the event that our opponent has a lot of bodies on board, we'd be able to bottom deck one of their Digimon, potentially. Blue Memory Boost, obviously, for searching. Hammer Spark, if you don't want to use Ice Wall. Cocytus Breath, if you have Cocytus Breath, that's obviously a great card. I personally don't have a lot of copies. I only have 1, so I don't use him. But then V-Wing Blade is also a potentially good card. It lets us return a level 6 or lower Digimon back to their hand. The problem I have with it is that's 6 cost. And at least with, say, Ice Statue, it can turn into a 5. Hell, even with Plasma Decadraw, we can actually bump it to a 5 if our opponent has two bodies on board. But that is it for this deck. Honestly, I don't see this as a competitive deck right now. I see this as a deck for someone who wants at least a chance but doesn't have the money to get competitive decks going. I would definitely put this in the same category as a D-Brigade deck, where it can be effective when in the right matchups, but it is definitely a good deck for learning how to play. And honestly, we are now at the 3-year mark for Digimon. We have finally beaten the 2-year curse. And honestly, hopefully, we'll get, better stuff from now on. I will see you all in the next video. Leave a like. Tell me what you think about this, and subscribe. I will see you all in the next video. Peace.